Could you first of all introduce yourself?
I'm John from the band System of a Down.
And we went to that show on Saturday. It was really great.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you liked it. It was very hot in that room. You know, we've been very happy because we've done only 3 shows in Europe in the past, 2 years with these 3 shows that we're playing. And we chose to play really small places. As everyone knows, we're coming back in about 2 months to do all the festivals and our own shows and whatnot. But, we were really happy because in France we played a 600-person venue, which we haven't played since, maybe 98 or 99, a place that small. So for us, it was very enjoyable and humbling, because when you're in those situations, you have to go back to what you were, which is what System of a Down tries to do. We always try to remember we're just a small rock band from, Southern California. You know what I mean? And if you always have that mentality, you don't get into like the ego and the stupid problems that you might have if you're over important, which is...
Plus you're more together than on a big stage, like Ahoy Rotterdam, for instance, like this big...
Yeah, actually, in the Cologne, I don't know if you noticed, but Darren fell into my drum set on the first song and like moved everything around. And I was laughing while I was playing because that's like the stuff that used to happen when we played the Whiskey, And I was like, man, maybe I should play with no riser, so that stuff can continue to happen. It's just, it takes you back to where you were, and that's always important, man. You got to remember that it's just music and you're just having a good time. And no matter how many people tell you, oh, wow, System of a Down, this, that, it's all meaningless. Right. What is meaningful is a reaction from us to the kids, in the audience.
And it was a really cool reaction this weekend.
Yeah. Well, we just started, guys. Right. You haven't seen anything yet. Wait till we come back.
I was wondering, because a few years ago, when we only could see you guys at festivals, etc., and right now, I was almost surprised by the fact that it was just from the beginning, from the first song, it was right in your face. And then while we were listening to the album this morning, I read in a magazine that you guys, when you first started playing again in January, I think it was in Australia or something, you guys were all like the first 2 shows. You really thought like, oh God. Are we really going to start over again?
Yeah. We thought we were terrible, People are coming up saying it's the best show they ever seen, and we're like, man, I don't know if you saw the same show we just played, but believe me, you did not see the best show you've ever seen. We were terrible, But then, like, you have to understand, we haven't played together on stage in 2 years, You have to get back into that. Plus, the music we're playing now is much more difficult than what we were playing before, And we haven't had the opportunity to fine-tune it, but we're getting more and more cohesive. I think that we're a tighter band now than we've ever been in our careers.
And I think
I totally agree.
For the new songs, you need to be like a more cohesive band because it's like it's more arranged together, etc., etc. It's after first listening to the album, but it sounds like something that's really necessary to be like 100% everybody to get it over at a live stage, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not easy to listen to. It's not easy to play, but it's not easy to listen to. And it takes patience. System of a Down takes patience. We're not something that you will necessarily understand the first time. Yeah. And, we're very shocked and surprised at the success that we have because we never thought that we would be played on the radio. We never thought we would be played on MTV, especially with the frequency that we are played. It's just like all the time they play us. I don't know how much they play us here in Holland, but...
Well, this country is slowly going down into like a country where only like the plastic pop music is played on the radio, except for some stations, of course. And MTV will, I think, if the video isn't too shocking, MTV will also play it. So that's the situation in Holland right now. Because a few years ago, everybody played all the hits, all the singles you guys brought out. So also that market is changing.
Right.
Okay. Well, about the album then. Because it's kind of difficult to, if you listen to it like once, it's really, it's always...
To it about 5 times to start.
I think so, because the feeling is right from the beginning. That for me, and then I think if you listen to 5, 6 times, I think you will hear a lot of different things. And the best thing I got out of it is that it is an album right now that is not something that just is like a second Toxicity or whatever. It's something that really... it doesn't really sound 100% different, but it is really different, isn't it?
Well, it's a progression, and we took our time making it. We didn't rush it out. We could have, I'm sure, popped out 2 albums by now if we wanted to, and still had 2 more coming out. But we took our time purposefully because we don't ever want to repeat ourselves. You know, if you look at from our discography, System of a Down, the first album, was a window to Toxicity, which was a window to Steal This Album, which was a window to what we're doing now. You know, it's just a progression. And you have to take these steps in order to grow as a band. If we just put out another Toxicity, it would probably be very successful, but in our minds and hearts, it wouldn't be, because it's just repeating ourselves, you know?
How do you keep yourself fresh then? Like, how do you really keep yourself into that status?
It's a natural thing that takes place.
But do you want each other? Like, no, that's it's more similar, like that song on the other albums?
I think we just try. If we hear something that sounds like something we've done, we just stop doing it. You know, it's just like, I've already done that. You know, I don't want to do that again. And it goes down from the songwriting all the way down to the beats. You know, I try my hardest not to play the same beats over and over again. Of course, some parts call for certain things, and I have to do it, you know. But if you listen to this album, it's very diverse, you know, and it doesn't sound like what I played on previous albums.
I really think you're progressing your drumming style.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, like you really play it harder and louder than the last records.
Well, as the music changes, if I don't change with the music, they need to get another drummer.
Did you practice a lot or something? Did you really practice a lot on your own? Or
Not really.
it's just playing live, isn't it?
I should have practiced a lot more, but, you know, we toured for 2 years on the Toxicity album, and if we had recorded Toxicity at the end of that 2 years, you would have heard a different album.
I think so.
You know, because naturally you just change. You know, you grow or you go backwards. There's no stagnating in life. You know, you either grow as a person or you're less of a person in a lot of ways. You become more intelligent or you become stupider. You know, you don't ever stay the same. And it's just something you have to do. You know, it's a conscious effort. You go out and you play every day, and you learn something. Oh, wow, that was different. Then you remember that, and you know, put more into it, and you develop that into something else, and it just keeps on developing until at the end it's completely different than what you started with.
Yeah. You recorded more. It's on this album, it's like 11 songs, 12 songs, and on the new album it's also like that same amount of them. How many songs did you write in total?
35.
Unbelievable.
35 that we recorded.
Unbelievable.
There was around 42 that were written.
That was also the case with Toxicity, isn't it? Because like a 33, I thought it was.
33 for Toxicity, but the difference between these records and Toxicity is the songs that ended up on Steel and the songs that ended up on Toxicity could not be on the same album. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They were too diverse. The songs that we ended up putting on Toxicity, in a lot of ways, were meant to be on that album. Now, keep in mind, there were songs that didn't make it on either, you know, that haven't been on anything, and probably will never be on anything because they don't fit what System of a Down is doing. They fit what we did in the past.
Right.
So we had to let them go.
Right. And about this album, how did you get sort these songs together out then?
Well, it wasn't easy.
No.
Originally, we had only intended on doing one album, but we realized very early on that was going to be impossible. And we had to make a conscious decision whether or not to release it as a double album. And we felt like it's just too much to take in at one sitting. You know, when I listened to all the songs day after day, I got a headache. You know, it was too much. Because there's too much to listen for. There's too much to take in. So we felt it would be better to release it as a double album in 2 parts. You know, where you have 6 months to kind of take in the first album, understand it, enjoy it, or throw it away, whatever you want to do. You know. And then when the second one comes out, give that one time, and then you can listen to it together once you're used to it, you know? It's like you build up a tolerance to it. But it's going to be very difficult to take both these albums and remember all the quality time in both of them if you're listening to, you know, 30 songs at once or 25 songs at once.
This first album, Mezmerize, is pretty short, isn't it? Like 40 minutes or something.
It's under 40 minutes. Yeah. We believe, once again, that's because people have short attention spans. And if we were playing pop stuff that was easy to listen to and easy to understand, you know, we could play for an hour and it's still, you'd be able to take it in. Yeah. But because there's so much happening, it's going to feel a lot longer than it is. You know, it's going to bombard your senses.
Well, you have to use your brain to listen to it, because that's something. I mean, you can listen to it without using your brain or whatever. Then it's something that goes on. And but if you really want to listen to it, you really have to think also about what the fuck is happening while listening to an album. Because also lyric-wise, Yeah, it's quick sex though sometimes.
Yeah, you can have like I said, it's good music to have sex to because there's so many different parts. It gives you a break. You know, like sometimes it goes slow, sometimes it goes fast. You know, it covers all the bases basically.
Yeah, but in the end, it's not that break wise as, for example, Toxicity. For my feeling when I listen to it, it's more like the songs are more. Some songs have like 25 breaks in it for the feeling, but a lot of songs also are like build up from a beginning to like the chorus and then again.
I'll tell you the second one.
Tell me.
It's gonna take you to a different place.
Yeah, is it really different?
It's
Is it more focused on other things, or like focused on?
It's very hard to explain, man. It's like, can you explain our album to somebody? You know, you just heard it. There's no explanation for it. There's really no way I could tell you or prepare you for what you're going to hear with the second album. You know, just like I can't really prepare you for the first. It just takes. It's part of the same album, part of the same field, but it goes to different places, and it will take you somewhere. You know, it will take you for a fucking ride.
I feel you're pretty proud of it.
I am very proud of it.
Yeah, cool. You should, because it's really cool.
Thank you. Even if nobody likes it, I'll still be just as proud.
Yeah, but that's the only way to do it, I think.
I think it's impossible that this album will have no one liking it.
Well, I mean, it's different, you know, and it's a departure from what we've done in the past. And some people get used to something and they don't want it to change. You know, they get used to a certain sound, and then when you present them with something that's a little different, they're like, I don't like it as much. You know.
Few bands that really do have the same things in mind when they're recording the next album. Like bands like U2 started with something, and right now, 20 years later, it's something completely different.
Yeah, but they also went into different areas, and they came back to that. You know, U2 really did have. That's one of the bands I really respect because they go to different places, but they maintain the sound. They've always sounded like U2, no matter what they've done. Yeah. You know. Same with Metallica, you know, when we're talking about bands of the last 20 years. Metallica has gone to many different places, and now they're trying to go back, you know, closer to their roots, which is, I think, natural. You know, as you get older, you're like, well, remember what we used to do? You know, maybe the 10th System of a Down album will sound like our first. You never know, because there is a circle that happens.
There's also, well, that's the great thing about System of a Down. When I'm trying to explain something about System of a Down to people that don't know you or whatever, I mean, there is always the System of a Down sound in it from the beginning. It's not only Surge, but it's also like the guitar sound sometimes. Although the guitar sound is on every song a little different, but it's always System of a Down in it. Is it something that also comes from your heart and while playing, or?
You could put the same guitar into 10 different people's hands, and it'll be played completely differently, but it's still the same guitar. That's how we are. You know, we play every song differently, but it's still System of a Down, you know, regardless of what we're doing. And it is definitely something that's from the inside, you know. The way we play, the technique that we use, and the feeling that we put into it, it can't be replicated by anybody, you know. It has to be us. Yeah. Even if one member was different, it would be a completely different band.
But no one is replicating System of a Down. That's a fun thing, because usually when a band sells a lot of albums, you get like 25 other bands that also try to make that sound, but no one tries to.
Don't you think Sum 41 tried to a little bit with that one song?
I don't even think it's worth to talk about Sum 41.
Yeah. You heard that song, right?
The new single, you mean?
I don't know if it's new. Oh. It came out while we were recording.
Oh, okay.
But it sounded like the beat from Forest, the beat from Chop Suey, the harmony from Chop Suey.
I think it's a new song we played recently on the radio.
It's like also with the high voice, etc., isn't it? Or is it? No, I know what it is. Yeah. It's not even out over here.
No. Really? Well, I look at anything like that happens, you have to understand it's complementary to you, you know? And we're lucky to have bands trying to replicate us during our time.
Right.
You know, not 10 years after we're done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think they're going to have a very difficult time because it really doesn't come from anywhere but inside. And they're not going to be able to reach that. They're better off just trying to be what they are, you know, whoever it is. I only bring up Sum 41 because that's the only thing I've ever heard people say, hey, it kind of sounds like they did something like you know?
No, a lot of bands here in Europe are trying to do that too. So
really?
Just a little bit. They don't even. If you listen to those bands, you don't even
see it. Really?
Well, if people tell you from the beginning, then you can a little bit think. But it's something unique, and it's something that will keep you guys going on for another 10 years. Because you guys started 10 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is our. I believe in May it's 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I was in the band for 8 years.
Yeah.
because the first 2 years they had somebody else. Who
Isn't it funny that because I read that you were already finished your drum parts in July last year or something? Wasn't it funny? Yeah. Wasn't it funny to wait for about 8 months to get on stage and go for it?
Funny about it. It's boring. I mean, it's not like I wasn't involved doing stuff, you know, but man, there was a lot of this happening, which is twiddling my thumbs and waiting, and you know, I was just on fire. I wanted to play these songs live, and it was just fucking taking forever, man. You know.
So didn't you rehearse in between then?
Yeah, I always rehearse.
Okay.
But
With the band too.
with the band too, but it's not the same. When you're live in front of people, it's a different feeling, and you play differently, and you play more energetic, and because you're feeding off the crowd. You know, I feed off the energy of the people listening to us.
Right.
And it's difficult to do that when I'm playing in my bedroom.
Hey, Rick Rubin produced it again, and what a great sound he made.
Yeah, he's a great producer,
What
and
was his influence on this album then? Really big again?
you know, also Darren had a lot to do with the production of this album, from everything from the drum sounds to the guitar sounds. You know, probably just as much as Rick did this time around. That should be known, you know, by people.
Yeah.
But Rick is great because Rick is really mellow. He makes small suggestions that make a big difference.
Right.
You know, like very small things, man. Don't play that one tom hit, but that one tom hit being gone makes the vocal sound come out more. You know, like it's just the smallest things make a big difference, and that's what his real talent is that he can make a good song great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Rick won't come and write songs for you. That's not his way of producing. But Rick will take your good song and make it into a great song with a very small suggestion.
Cool. Yeah. And he did it with the 35 songs you recorded.
Yeah, he did. He had a headache too after one song. Vicinity. You know Vicinity? Oh, maybe. Oh, that's on the second album, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not on this one.
Anyway, after we're recording it, we played it maybe 10 times in a row while we were recording, and he goes, look, can we stop for a minute? You know, I have a headache.
I think that's pretty loud then. Huh?
No, it was just it's a difficult song to understand, and when you hear it, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know?
Okay. Hey, the first single's called Biop.
No, it's actually BYOB.
Okay. Bring your own.
Bombs. It could be bring your own bombs,
Bring your own beer.
bring your own bitches, whatever you want to say. You know, like, but it's really bring your own bombs.
Yeah. What's lyrical wise on this album really stand out? What's it all about?
Well, it's pretty diverse, but obviously the last couple of years, you know, the last 5 years have been a tremendously difficult time to be alive in the world. You know, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of death, you know, as usual. And you'll see that reflected in here. But you'll also see humor reflected, and sex and drugs, you know, which are all the things that encompass life.
But it's the only way to get it across to people, because if you guys were going on stage and then going, well, we'll hold like speeches of 25 minutes with your thoughts about the crap that's happening for the last, no, it's not only 5 years, but like the last 100 years.
We find that very boring. You know, I don't want to go to a rock show and hear somebody bitching about things for 45 minutes. I'd be like, just shut up and play. Yeah. You know, if you were at our show, we barely talked about anything, you know, and it's all energy. Yeah. You know, if people want to find out things, they can. They have the option. Yep. But we're not going to push it down their throat. I'm not going to push my opinion down your throat. You know, I'm not Gandhi or, you know, a president of the United States or somebody to institute policy.
It comes up every time in interviews.
That I'm the president of the United States?
No, the Armenian problem and all that.
Yeah, well, you know, that's
so the journalists really ask about that.
We don't have a problem talking about it because it is something that needs to be acknowledged, you know? Okay. And Europe, I think, is close to bringing Turkey into the EU, you know, which now finally they're starting to talk about it in Turkey because a lot of countries are saying, look, either you admit to this atrocity and genocide or else you're not going to be part of it. You know, so of course, only a financial reason would make them do it. But I want people to understand that we do not hate Turks. You know, we in history are very close to Turks. The only difference is when Christianity came about, the Armenian king said, we're all Christian now. That's it. We're the first Christian race, you know, while the Romans were still crucifying and burning Christians, we were the people being crucified and burned, you know, and we've been persecuted ever since.
That's what everybody forgets, isn't it? Because, I mean, never. I mean, in interviews with System of a Down, you read about the Armenian suicidal. The killing. Like it's almost 100 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, 1915 is when it happened.
Still, this is like one of those big stories which never comes up, and it's gotten around. Now everybody thinks now, well, it's 90 years ago.
I'll explain to you exactly why. Okay, first of all,
We have 2 minutes left.
yeah, don't worry about that. We'll go as long as we want. First of all, there was no financial gain from the Western world acknowledging this genocide. You know, there was no reason for it. Number one. Number two, because we were being destroyed, it was the Russians that came to our aid. We had to become a part of communist Russia, which was considered the enemy for the last 60, 70 years. So who the fuck cares about their enemies' problems, right? Nobody cared about Armenians because Armenians were considered part of Russia. Now that we're free, it's being brought into light more. Now we want also people to understand, during the Armenian genocide, many, many Turks, at risk to their own lives, harbored Armenians because it was punishable by death to harbor Armenian during that time. You know, they're trying to eradicate us all, and people were taking us into their homes, putting us in the roof, you know, in the attic and the basement, and feeding us. And you know, many stories happened that way. It was only a few thousand soldiers that instituted the genocide.
Right.
You know, of the Ottoman Empire, the new Turks, basically.
That's happens a lot of times. I mean, it's, for example, the war in Iraq, to get like the biggest cliche war of the last few years. I mean, it was a war instigated by 2 or 3 people for the opinion out. I mean, if you look at it, and then
most wars are instituted by one person. You know, it only takes one person to push a button. And that's how war starts.
It also needs a lot of people to listen to that one person. That's also that's the second
People will always
phase.
listen if they're afraid, and people will always do what they're told if they're afraid. You know, Hitler had a very good way of making people fear. It's the Jews' fault that we're poor. You know, it's the Jews' fault that this is happening to us. And then what happened? He started making machines of war, and that boosted the economy of Germany at that time. So the Germans thought, wow, you know, this guy's doing something good. Right. Most Germans, probably 99% of Germans did not want to go to war, did not want to see their sons die and their fathers die. You know, they didn't want to see, 6 million Jews eradicated. But that never would have happened if Hitler didn't see what happened to the Armenians and nothing was done about it.
If someone would have done something about that afterwards or whatever, yeah.
To do what he did.
Well, you might have at least fought one more time before starting up the...
Don't forget Stalin killed as many Jews and gypsies and people as Hitler did, but nobody talks about that because Stalin was an ally of the West at that time, you know? If Hitler didn't attack Russia, I think Germany would have still won, even against America. They were too fucking strong, man. They were too strong. You guys actually are one of the only countries that pushed them back, right?
For a few days.
Well, we stayed central.
Yeah, we had especially here in Amsterdam, we had like a large Jewish community, which was almost completely rushed out of here. Right. And also by a lot of Dutch people that thought, well, I'm going to choose the side of the Germans because you never know what happens. If they stay here, I'm the lucky one.
Yeah. So we're losers.
We're all losers when there's war, man. There's no winner. Because you know what? Even either side of the battlefield, there's good people dying for no reason.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the last question is, I mean, connected to this, I mean, System of a Down is also always like, well, if you read the lyrics, etc., it's also indirectly telling people to please think about what you're doing in your life. Not only live and then, well, die after a year or 80 if you're lucky, but...
If you go through life without an understanding of, the balance between all people, then you really only live half a life because you don't understand what's happening in your own life. How can you understand yourself if you don't understand others, And vice versa.
Cool. All right. We have to quit. Looking forward to all the new gigs coming up.
Yeah, we'll be back in about a month and a half to 2 months, I think. Middle June, right?
Yeah.
So we're really looking forward to it.
Other festivals coming up?
Yeah, we're doing 6 or 7 festivals in Europe. Here we're playing in Rotterdam, I think, right? At the, what was it called? There you go, ahoy. So ship ahoy. We'll be there. We'll be there in a couple months.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.